three is good. Off the foul. A chance for four. Only three to shoot. Gonna have to make something happen. Clark through the lane. Reverses it in. Post feed. Boston. Oh, beats the clock. Wow. Indiana will reset. Clark fire away. You bet.
Hello, Fever fans, and welcome back to the Pacers Fever Show. I'm your host, Logan, and we've got a jam-packed episode for you today. The Indiana Fever picked up a much-needed win on Tuesday night at home against the Washington Mystics. We'll break down what went right, who stepped up, and what it means going forward. Then we're looking ahead to Saturday, where the Indiana Fever will hit the road to take on the Chicago Sky in their second Commissioner's Cup matchup of the season. Can Indiana carry this momentum into a big rivalry game with the Windy City? All that and more is coming up right now on the Pacers Fever Show. We have some catching up to do in this episode with my work schedule in the Pacers playoff run and making it into the NBA Finals, recording that preview show, and then having to work a couple of days after hours at work. I've not been able to record that much this week, and the priority was Indiana Pacers because of their finals run, but I did want to get back into the Indiana Fever, and we'll make up some ground here as we will be back for all of the games that are coming up to recap them for the Fever. So we shouldn't miss any more recaps or previews for the Fever, but just because of the work schedule and life happening, I just was not able to get back to the Fever, and I really needed to record the Pacers content and watching some of those games and just the way that it fell during the work week. It was just very difficult for me to get back into recording a podcast, editing it, doing the thumbnails, the rundown, and everything else that goes into making a podcast. So I do appreciate all the support so far, and thank you for having patience with me. We are over on YouTube at the Pacers Fever Show. You can see the rundown, all the talking points that we're going to discuss throughout the episodes over there. And I even have some fun graphics that we'll start to insert into these shows and to make it more fan engagement friendly, so that way you can look at some different things that we're going to be discussing here on the podcast. But like I said, we are on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, and if you want to listen to the audio version and you're on the YouTube version right now, you can find us anywhere that you find your podcast. We are on socials at the Pacers Fever Show on X, and Facebook is where we're most active. We're going to get active on TikTok starting with the Indiana Fever. And as we close out the season in the NBA, I'll start to lean more into doing some content on TikTok as well. And then Instagram, we don't post as much over there. I'm going to try to get better at posting just some content on Instagram, so that way you can have different platforms and to interact. But we do check all of the direct messages for all of the platforms, including Instagram, X, and Facebook. So if you want to leave a comment or drop a message, again, I'm always looking for a co-host to jump on or a guest to talk Indiana Fever or Indiana Pacers. So if you're interested in either one of those or both of those, or want to join full-time as a co-host, we can, of course, talk about that and run through maybe a practice episode and just see how the vibe is. And I look forward to connecting with all of the fans as we start to get more and more steam for the Fever and the Pacers. And it's just been a really exciting time for the city of Indianapolis. The Pacers are in the NBA Finals, so that's just taken over a lot of the spotlight, I think. But Caitlin Clark should be returning relatively soon. There hasn't been much of an update as far as a timeline, but she will miss the game on Saturday. So we will continue to monitor that. But that was the last game that it felt like she might miss. But again, it's just day to day. They won't risk anything. And if they feel she needs another week or so, I would not be surprised. And I think it just depends on how the Fever are playing at this point, because it has been a struggle since Caitlin Clark has been absent from the lineup. And we'll talk about the games that we've missed. So we actually missed recapping the Connecticut Sun. We did preview that game, and the Fever drop a game against a team that had not won yet in the WNBA season. The Sun collect their first win in a very good revenge game against Stephanie White and DeWanna Bonner. Connecticut win that 85-83, and I thought for the most of that game that the Connecticut Sun were the better team. They came back and matched Indiana's fight. I thought they were the more intentional team, the more intense and physical team. And that's been something that we've talked about with the Fever this season, is that the games they lose tend to be on the physicality, intensity, focus side. And that's something that mentally you just have to get better in those categories. There's not really much you can do as far as, I mean, obviously you can apply more defensive pressure, focus more on the rebounds, but it's a lot of mental lapses and mistakes for the Fever early on in the season. And I think it's just the intensity and being prepared and following your game plan. And when you've got younger players and you have these ever-changing lineups just because of all the injuries that the Fever have had to withstand, it's just caused a lot of uncertainty in the beginning of the season. And when you're missing your star point guard, one of the best players in the WNBA and best player in franchise history, I think that you're obviously going to regress some, but it's just been tough sledding because it's your point guard, it's your floor general, it's somebody that can score 20 to 30 points a night, can provide 10 to 15, maybe 20 assists, averages almost a triple double in that real early stretch of the season. And so they've really missed Caitlin, but they've got to figure out a way to create offense when she's not able to play in games or when she's on the bench. I mean, this is a team that struggles tremendously when she is not getting minutes on the floor. And it's tough because, you know, Caitlin's been in foul trouble a couple times throughout the season when she was playing, and they've had to try to adjust. And Sydney Colson, who struggled early on and identifying how she was going to run this offense and getting meshed in with these players on this team. I think Sydney struggled early, but I think she's been a lot better in the games that she has played. And the Fever make a really big addition. Honestly, I felt like, you know, it was an emergency hardship exception that that the Fever go and sign Ari McDonald, and that was the big headline heading into this game, was how much would she play, having just one practice, basically fresh off the plane, and hadn't been playing throughout the preseason much, and just training on her own and individually. I mean, this was somebody that was sitting around, didn't have a team to play for. And I think with just the talent and skill that she had coming into the WNBA, and it hadn't really panned out for her, I felt like, you know, and not playing with the Sparks, and ultimately they let her go, and she's sitting around in free agency waiting for another shot. And, you know, this is what's so cool about this Fever team and also the Pacers, is they seem to really strike gold in these players that many teams have doubted throughout their career. And Ari might be that kind of player. I mean, she was fantastic in the game against the Washington Mystics, which we'll cover as we get further into this episode. But again, a lot of what's going on right now with the Fever, the struggles, I mean, obviously Caitlin Clark being out and only playing a couple of games, it really hurts this team. But I think in the long run, the growing that's going to happen in this time period is going to help them down the road. And you're really starting to see some players come into their own. I mean, Lexi Hull's been the best player probably on the Fever since the absence of Caitlin Clark, and Aaliyah Boston has had some really great games. Kelsey Mitchell finally had a really good game against the Mystics, had struggled in the two games prior to that against the Mystics and the Sun. But I felt like Kelsey really took it upon herself to help in the offense and creating offense and hitting big shots in this game against the Mystics, because they do let them back into the game late. And we're going to get through just kind of the recap and how that happened. But first, like I said, I want to jump into game 7 of the WNBA season. The Fever come into this game having really nobody available. Sydney Colson actually gives it a go, and she actually plays in this game. I didn't think she was going to play, but she ends up starting. She's right back into it after what was a scary knee injury. I thought it was pretty serious, but she's tough. And I mean, it didn't get any better, because early on in the game, she gets absolutely drilled in the nose. Nose starts bleeding. And so, gosh, it's just been a tough break for the Fever with Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham is still out with her ankle injury, and I thought it was really serious, but now she's listed as day-to-day, so she's questionable going forward, but it's going to be probably a game time decision whether Sophie's comfortable enough to get back out there, but she looked like she turned her ankle real bad and was going to miss a really extended period of time. But it looks like she's closer to returning. Caitlin Clark's going to get closer to returning, and this team that has struggled with her injuries early haven't really seen the Fever at full strength. And I think their best game overall, and they kind of squander it at the end. But that game against the Liberty, I mean, that's what this team is capable of. But I don't think we've really been able to see just what this team can do because of the injuries and just the timing and the scheduling and everything else. So I think once they get these players back, with the addition of Ari McDonald, who there's going to be a decision made later on down the road whether they can keep her on the roster, and if there's somebody that's going to have to make way for her on this roster just because of how valuable she was in this game. And if she continues to play like this, she's going to make a very good case as to why she should be a person on this team. And if she's not on this team, somebody else will more than likely pick her up, because when those players return from injury, she will have to have her contract exterminated, and we'll see what happens. And we'll talk about what all goes into that. But the Indiana Fever again announced the signing of Ari McDonald earlier this week via emergency hardship exception. The WNBA emergency hardship exception allows any team to sign a player with immediate effect if a team drops below 10 game eligible players at any time throughout the season. Over the course of her 4-year WNBA career, McDonald's averaged 8.6 points per game, 2.8 assists per game, and 2 rebounds per game. McDonald spent the 2024 season with the LA Sparks, where she averaged 8.7 points per game, appearing in 26 games total. Drafted number 3rd overall by the Atlanta Dream in the 2021 WNBA draft, McDonald averaged 6.3 points, 1.6 rebounds, and 2 assists in her 30 games, and was subsequently named to the WNBA All-Rookie team. During the 2023 season, McDonald helped Atlanta qualify for their first playoff berth since 2018. So she's been around winning basketball, but she's just, she's a really good role player and a really good option off the bench. And having that really good rookie season, she's just kind of stayed around that level of what she provides to a team. But that's really good production for a 6th, 7th, 8th player, a backup point guard or a backup guard. I think that will play in this league very well, and she can make a career of being a exceptionally good defensive player because she is very good defensively. But she's also excellent at attacking a defense and facing those point of attack defenders that a lot of these WNBA teams are making a living off of those players because of the excellent play of the guards on the Liberty, the Aces. You even look at Minnesota and trying to stop Collier over there. And now Caitlin Clark. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of really good defenders and teams built around really good point of attack defenders that can guard point guards because of just how many good ones there are in this league, including Caitlin Clark. So trying to have success against teams like that have those really good offensive point guards, you're going to have defensive minded players. And Ari McDonald is that kind of person for the Fever. I mean, she is not exceptionally tall, but she is feisty. She is mean. She can get downhill and run an offense. She loves to run with pace. She is the perfect player, I think, for this Indiana Fever team. And Sydney Colson provides really good things for this Fever team, but you might rely heavily on Ari McDonald going forward. And I think a decision is going to be made later on to determine whether she sticks around and what happens as a result. Which players could we see released by this Fever team? So we will see what happens with Ari, but if she continues to play like this, she's going to make it very hard on that front office and this coaching staff to give up on her. And if they do, again, like I said, there's going to be some teams, I think, that swoop right in and sign her. Game 7 against the Mystics, they came in 3-4, and they actually dropped this game. They are 3-5. And they are a team, like I said, that is, I think, very exciting. You've got a really exciting future just because of the caliber of players that you have on this roster. And when the Fever played them in Baltimore without Caitlin Clark, first game without Caitlin, you could tell just how talented this team is and is going to be. I mean, Kiki Irifen, Sonia Citron are very good basketball players, and the Fever have their hands full with playing this Mystics team. And it was a tight game in the first half. I thought back and forth, very good basketball being played between the two of them. Obviously, there's still some mistakes because they are both younger teams. And I think that there are spells in which these teams are not as effective. And they do have a harder time closing out opponents. And that's just a sign of being a younger team and inexperienced team when you've got players that are your best players under the age of 24, 23. I mean, those are young players in this league. And those women are just, they're trying to learn what this league is about. And a lot of the end game situations, those high leverage, high intensity moments can be difficult for a player. But I felt like Indiana, while they let them back in it in the second half, I felt that their experience over the Mystics really benefit. The Fever are the beneficiaries of really good experience around players like Aaliyah Boston. So again, I felt like the biggest difference in this game was the ability to, when it felt like the walls were starting to cave in a little bit on the Fever in the fourth quarter, when the Mystics go on their, I think it was 14-0 run in the fourth quarter and bring it all the way back to where I think they either tied or had the lead, slight lead, but I can't quite remember. But it was to the point where the Fever felt like they were going to lose this game because of the run that the Mystics went on. But then right after that 14-0 run, Fever start to turn it back around. Kelsey Mitchell with some big shots. Aaliyah Boston with some big shots. Lexi Hull, extremely big in the second half. So they were able to close out the Mystics and win that game by 9. But you look at just the young players on that Mystics team with Kiki Irifen, who the Fever have a really tough time trying to defend because of her athleticism. Her speed makes her a little bit more of a difficult guard for players like Natasha Howard and Aaliyah Boston. Her size is great, but I mean, I think it's her ability to knock down jump shots, but also take the ball to the rack. And she had 20 points on 9 of 11 shooting. I mean, she is a very efficient basketball player. She had 9 boards. And really, I mean, I could see her being a top player in this league as time goes on because she's just got the talent. She's got the ability and skill just to take this Mystics team to the next level. Brittany Sykes is a very good veteran player. And there's been a lot of talk of like, could she be moved around the trade deadline? I don't think so. I think this Mystics team, if Irifen and Citron aren't playing like they are, I think that you could look at that and possibly make that move because you've got a player like Shakira Austin who is up and coming as well. Aaliyah Edwards, when healthy, is very good. And then you've got Angsler and Melbourne on the bench that are good basketball players. Lucy Olson. You've got a lot of young talent, and there's going to be some shifting around, I think, in that starting lineup eventually as Sykes starts to move on, and maybe you get a star point guard. I mean, Sugg Sutton is serviceable, but I don't think, I think that's something that this team is still missing is a really elite point guard. And, Sykes will handle the ball a ton as well, but this team is very close to being very competitive and contenders, I would say, because of how good Irifen and Citron have been, the third and fourth picks of the draft this last season. So those rookies are just amazing to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun having them around in the league because I feel like they are going to be dark horses coming up as those two players progress throughout their career. But like I said, Kiki Irifen, 20 points, Sykes, 20 points on 7 of 14 shooting, had a good night from the field as well. Citron, 13 points, 5 of 8 from the field. And, I feel like the more she starts to get comfortable and involved and evolves in this lineup, and as Sykes starts to, I don't know if Brittany Sykes stays around, she's the one option, right? But I mean, Citron is going to be a close second along with Irifen. I mean, those are 3 really good basketball players. So I'm interested to see what happens. And then they bring in Shakira Austin, who's one of the best players off the bench, I think. I mean, she's been great in her very short time in the league. And, she's had some injuries in early in the season, but in her career, she's averaging 9.3 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, and in a role that's kind of this six woman, right? Six woman off the bench, and she's just been great. They're a fun team to watch. I'm a big fan. Like from the outside looking in, when they're not playing the Fever, I mean they're a team that I would watch most of the time just because of how talented I think that this ball club is. So be interesting to see where they end up in the regular season. I think that they can contend for one of those last spots in the playoffs and could make some noise as they grow and start to figure out how to play and compete in this league. And the Fever might have a matchup coming up with them soon. So in the playoffs, be very interesting. But yes, the Fever really good in the second half, turned this game around, and really, I mean, we're sparked by Lexi Hull and Ari McDonald. I mean, those two were fabulous in this game. Kelsey Mitchell came on and just played like the veteran player that we expected her to play. And in the last two games combined, she hadn't been as great. But just a quick rundown of what happened. Indiana got on the board first and led throughout the first quarter. Dantas was really good. Demir Dantas was excellent. She had 8 points in the opening 10 minutes, hit 2 3-pointers. I mean, just she looked great. And that's big for the Fever. They really need her input off the bench. And she provides a lot of good minutes, backing up the two bigs and Natasha Howard and Aaliyah Boston. I feel like she is going to be key going forward because you've gotten really good production from DeWanna Bonner also as she's moved into a bench role. So you've got a really solid bench when you start to really think about what they can provide, where they'll have Sophie Cunningham coming off the bench. They'll have Dantas and DeWanna Bonner. And then you look at having an Ari McDonald and Brianna Turner and Sydney Colson. And obviously, if they keep Ari, they're going to have to make a choice. But it just, this team is starting to develop that depth that we really needed to see and what we were excited about coming into the season. You sign these veteran players and Bonner doesn't get off to a good start. Sydney Colson looks lost. They've turned it around, and Dantas we wanted to see take the next step, and she started to. And Sophie Cunningham, we knew what we were going to get with her, and it's been everything as advertised with Sophie. So this is a darn good basketball team. Now it'll be about getting Caitlin back into the fold and her getting better. I mean, obviously she still struggles at times with turnovers and foul trouble along with Aaliyah, but they're starting to figure it out. And you're seeing some real steps here with Aaliyah Boston as she's had to pick up some of the slack that is missing with Caitlin on the sideline. So Indiana began ended the second quarter with a 4-point lead, thanks to 8 points from Aaliyah Boston, 5 from Bonner and Kelsey Mitchell. So you had the veterans helping out the young Aaliyah Boston in this one in the first half. And then Indiana began the third quarter consecutive 3-pointers from Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, and Sydney Colson. Fever extend their third quarter lead, jumping out in front by 14, backed by Lexi Hull's unbelievable performance in the third quarter with 12 points and hitting tough shots, and her ability to get to rebounds in the 50-50 balls and her intensity on the defensive end. This player she is becoming an absolute force as she's entered the starting lineup. And I mean, Lexi Hull's going to make a real good case as to why she's the, fourth option, like of a four-headed mom. I mean, she's becoming quite a asset for this team defensively, offensively, and in the rebounding and turnover battle. She's been excellent. Just the shots she hit in this game. She had one where she had one coming across her body and made a nice spin move and just buried a jumper inside the paint. It was a great shot. And if she does that, I mean, this is a difficult team to beat. The depth, the scoring, and again, it's just so funny how how very similar they are starting to like mirror each other, the Pacers and the Fever. You've got 1 through 10, you run like crazy, you defend really well. Rebounding, you kind of struggle with at times, maybe some physicality as well at times. I mean, it's eerily similar, their two teams and the way they like to run. They are starting to shoot the ball efficiently, the Fever are, and the Pacers are a very efficient team as well, shooting the basketball. It's just fun because of how similar they kind of have been built, and I think it's just that Pacer Sports and Entertainment Group, the ownership group with Kelly, with kind of that cross mingling between Kelly, where she was in the ownership group with and working in the front office with the Pacers, and now she's working in the Fever, and they've built this similar kind of cohesive unit where they like playing together, high class, high quality human beings, and it's just an exciting time to be an Indianapolis fan. And I hadn't felt that way with the Fever last couple of games, but you're starting to see some real growth here. And I think it's very important with Caitlin on the sideline to build this chemistry without your best player. It's great. But yeah, the Fever explode in the third, but in the fourth quarter, the Mystics create a close game going on a 14-0 run. However, late points by Kelsey Mitchell, who ends with 24 points, push the Fever to a home victory. Like I said, they get right back into almost, I think it's a tie game late in that game, looking for the advantage to go ahead. The Mystics were, but then the clamps came down once again, and the Fever storm out to a 9-point win and a huge win. They needed this. They'd lost 3 straight games, and I think this is again eerily similar to what the Pacers did. Don't start very well in the season. It's looking rough. You go 2-4, you're missing your best player, you're missing a lot of good key role players. But once you start to get healthy, this team started to make a run, the Indiana Pacers, and now you're looking at the Fever, same kind of thing, right? We could probably look back to this 3-game losing streak, played really well against New York, but that's when Caitlin Clark gets hurt. She goes out for a couple of weeks. They have a really difficult loss against the Mystics at Washington, which, I mean, you'll kind of take that because Washington, up and coming team, playing really well, but a disaster loss against a team that had not won in the regular season in the Connecticut Sun. They beat the Fever, and it just looking pretty grim. And then all of a sudden, you get that spark from Aerie and Lexi. Dwana Bonner's playing well. Leah Boston playing well. Kelsey Mitchell's turning it around. I mean, I think in the 2 games against the Mystics in Connecticut, I think combined for like just over 25 points. And in this game alone against the Mystics had 24. She shot the ball a lot better. It was in the flow of the offense. I didn't feel like she was trying to beat teams individually, which isn't really her forte. She's a very good shooter and can get to her shot and create a shot, but she's not really, trying to get to the paint a whole lot. And I think just a really good perimeter shooter. And I think isn't really you can't really ask her to be the primary point guard. And I think that was what was difficult for her, is she was playing more point guard with Sydney Colson struggling to get the offense initiated. So it was a mess. But I think, like I said, the long-winded version is, as I was going on that rant there, you could probably look back, and you might look back at this Friday, May 30th loss against the Sun as that turning point in their season, right? So what, they're up to, they're 3-4, 7 games. They play 44, and they've got 37 games left. So you look right at this point where they could win these games coming up, make a push for some hardware. That game, I think, against the Liberty is going to be a determining game on who goes to Commissioner's Cup. If the Fever take care of business against the Sky and can compete with Atlanta and beat them too, they're going to put themselves in a really good position hosting the Liberty for a chance to almost just solidify their spot in the Commissioner Cup final. And that's exciting. I mean, any kind of hardware that you can get to build that intensity level to play in a final before you play in the playoffs would be huge for this young team. And that final will take place in July 1st. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Indiana does to respond to this win. I think there's some momentum that they can grasp and take advantage of. And they got 2 games on the road, good test, right? Chicago playing a lot better than when the Fever saw them to open the season, and then Atlanta one of the better teams in the WNBA. So I think this is a nice spot to see what the Fever can do, and you hope to get Caitlin Clark back for that Atlanta game, but I think she comes back on a little bit of a minutes restriction. But like I said, just Ari McDonald coming in and playing the minutes that she did, and just her ability to get turnovers and turn the ball over or get turnovers on the other team, right? Her ability to defend and just cause havoc. She took an offensive foul, like just got obliterated in this game, but it was a great offensive foul that she took, and just a dog, right? She is feisty. She fits this team, so I'm excited about what she can provide, and her assist, like her 5 assists, she's unbelievable. 0 turnovers in 27 minutes. I mean, just very efficient, sneaky good, and something that this team really needed. They need that boost. The Fever will terminate McDonald's hardship contract once Cunningham or Clark are healthy. But after this performance, again, it's going to be hard for them to try to ignore the fact that she just makes this team better. They're going to have her back. I think the Fever are going to have to make that choice to bring her back. They'll find a way. They'll find a way. Kelsey Mitchell joked that McDonald, who'd only had one practice with the team before signing on Monday, that she knew some of the plays better than other players. I mean, joking aside, there's a little bit of truth maybe to that, Kelsey Mitchell, but yeah, I mean, this team's still learning. They're still piecing all these things together because they got a lot of new faces. But yeah, Kelsey Mitchell, fantastic in this one. She'd made her second straight All-Star game last year, finished 8th in the league in scoring with a career high of 19.2 points per game, and shot 40% from 3 last year. And her presence was definitely needed in this game, and has been needed in the absence of Caitlin Clark. She stepped up big time, and she'd scored a combined 27 points on 8 of 31 shooting in the Fever's first 2 games without Clark, but now, and they lost both. But now, I mean, she had a really good game, and I think carries that momentum going forward, because it's going to be needed if they're going to try to weather this storm without Caitlin. Clark's presence makes it easy for this Fever to be prolific from 3, but it's been everything but that to start the season. Entering Tuesday, Fever were 11th in the league in attempts per game at 20.3 and 7th in percentage. But against the Mystics, shot it better at 11 of 28, setting new season high for both attempts and makes. This was the first time all season they've made double-digit threes in a game, and their 39.3% mark from the three-point line from distance was their 3rd best thus far. Lexi Hull, again, made 2 threes, and the Fever had 21 assists on 30 made field goals, turned it over just 8 times, which is much better than what they had been. I mean, they were getting over 15 easy as far as turnovers were concerned. And like I said, the Fever's 3-point shooting was the big difference in this game. They outscored the Mystics 33-3 in the 3-point margin. That's a huge margin, and a big reason why they win this game. Lexi Hull in that game, 14 points, 6 boards, 4 assists. Natasha Howard, 6 points. She had 2 rebounds, and was one of her quieter nights of the season. Leah Boston, 10 points. She had 4 assists, 1 rebound. She wasn't as effective in this game, but Kelsey Mitchell, 24 points. She had a really good night. 2 rebounds, 3 assists, just 1 turnover and 2 steals. Sydney Colson, 7 points, good production off the bench. Ari McDonald, same thing, 7 points, 5 assists. Colson had 3 assists, just to go back on that. But Ari McDonald, 7 points, 5 assists, 0 turnovers in the 27 minutes that she played. DeWanna Bonner, huge night again, 9 points off the bench, 3 turnovers. She had 1 assist. She had 2 rebounds. Dantas had 8 points off the bench. She had 4 rebounds. She was really, really good early on in this game to keep the Fever in that game early. I felt like they struggled some shooting. And then Brianna Turner played a minute and 48 seconds. And of course, Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, both out injured. So they did not get in the game. And then Michaela Tempson did not get any minutes. But overall, really good ending to that game they were really good in the second half, and the Fever go on to win it to move to 3-4 on the regular season. If you look at the total team stats for that Fever Mystics game, the rebounds for Indiana 19. They did get absolutely torched on the boards. The Mystics had 33, 14 rebound margin. Again, like I said, 21 assists for the Fever, only 12 for the Mystics, 8 steals for Indiana. They were huge from distance, again, having that 30-point margin between the two teams. Indiana 5 points on the fast break compared to the Mystics. 2 points. Second chance points go to the Mystics 9-7. And then Washington dominate in the paint as far as scoring, 48 points to 34 for the Fever. That is something that I think will continue to be a struggle for Indiana. I think they'll get beat quite often in the paint because they've just been taken advantage of in the paint. So I think that's something that the Fever are going to have to kind of shore up, because the Liberty have really good post players. The Phoenix is going to get in the paint with Nafisa Collier. And that squad, the Aces, same kind of thing. You're playing with fire when you're allowing that margin to exist in the paint. You got to be better defending it, but you also got to get in the paint more. And that'll go up with Caitlin playing more. She frees up Aaliyah Boston a lot. So we will see that number increase. But that's been one thing if you're going to take away. I think just the physicality in the low post and in the paint is still a concern for this Fever team. But yeah, they were great. And I felt like really hung in there well as they were taking that final punch that the Mystics were throwing. They responded well to that, and that's something you want to see in a team that continues to have these experiences and grow. We're moving on now to the next game, which will be against the Chicago Sky. I played them earlier in the season, and the Fever absolutely blew them out opening night by 35 points. It was 93-58. Fever torched the Chicago Sky in that game. Kelsey Mitchell had 15 points, Natasha Howard 15, Leah Boston 19, Caitlin Clark 20 points, Bonner with 7, Lexi Hull 9 points. And Michaela Tempson actually got some minutes in that game too, 4 points, Sydney Colson 2, and Dantas 2. They were without Sophie Cunningham in that game, and they absolutely just annihilated the Chicago Sky. Chicago only shot 29.1% from the field, 22.5 or 2% from the 3-point line. They were 6 of 27 from 3. They turned the ball over a ton against the Fever, 17 times. They just couldn't handle the intensity, the pace in which the Fever were playing, and it showed. I mean, they could not defend anyone, and which is a big problem, I think. I mean, if you're looking forward to as Chicago, you got good players that can defend, and they just got absolutely torched on that end of the floor. Angel Reese had 12 points in that game. She had 17 rebounds. So again, like I said, rebounding will continue to be a struggle, I think, for the Fever and eliminating some of those bigs. But Angel only had 12 points off of 5 of 14 shooting. Ariel Atkins, who's been really great recently, had 11 points. And she wasn't too involved in that game. Camila Cardoso, she had 7 points, 3 of 9 shooting. Courtney Vandersloot did not play well in this game either. She was 2 of 9, and neither did Kia Nurse. And again, Chicago just got blown out of the water. It was a very bad night for that Chicago Sky team. Had a hard time sticking in with the Fever. Shot at 50% from the free throw line. Only got to the free throw line 12 times. Fever 25 times, which was a big difference in that game. 13 steals for the Fever. I feel like their defense just put the Chicago Sky in a bind, and the Fever's defense has been really good this season. I think a much better defensive team than they were obviously last season, and really are making a case for being one of the better teams because of, I think, behind Stephanie White's adjustments and some of the players that they've brought in, they've gotten a lot better defensively, got a better cohesive unit, at least on the defensive side of the basketball. And that'll be key in this game because they're still going to be without Caitlin, probably without Sophie if I had to gamble on that. I just don't know if they're going to rush her back too quickly because they want that thing to heal. You don't want it to linger, those ankle injuries. But like I said, playing the Chicago Sky at the United Center. It's going to be a fun game, fun atmosphere. Commissioner's Cup game 2, and Indiana looking to advance to that 2-0 Commissioner Cup record. But the Sky are finally on the board after back-to-back wins over the Wings. During their three games this past week, Ariel Atkins averaged 21.3 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 2 steals on 51.2% shooting. Lighting it up is Ariel Atkins. This is the player that gave up. They gave up the number 3 pick, Sonia Citron, in a 2027 first-round swap to acquire, and she's looked apart in the last couple of games. And she's taken 20 shots in their she took 20 shots in their first 3 games combined, and she had at least 14 in all 3 games this week. So she's shooting it more, getting more involved in the offense, and is a good offensive player, and has been a good spark for them. I mean, it really has. It was a close loss against Phoenix earlier this week I guess was that last week? It was last week, yeah. Tuesday, May 27th. Man, these games are so spread out. May 27th, that was last week, I think. They played the Phoenix, lost by 5, and then they played 2 games against the Wings, one at Chicago on Thursday, May 29th, and then Saturday, May 31st, they went to Dallas, beat them by 5 points in the game they hosted at home on the 29th, and then beat them by the same Dallas team by 11 at Dallas. So good performance on the road. They'll be feeling pretty good about themselves coming into the game. Atkins had 26 points against Dallas in that last game, but that's a whole week that they've had off, the Chicago Sky. So they'll come into this game against Indiana very well rested, where Indiana's had a pretty long break too. They haven't played since Tuesday. The day that you're listening to this will be, what is this, Friday? I guess it'll be Friday. Friday, or maybe Saturday before the game. But yeah, unbelievable performance by Ariel Atkins, and you're going to want that return because of how good Sonia Citron has been with the Washington Mystics. A huge trade, but she fit the bill. She's fit the bill so far, and that's really important for this Sky team that had struggled early on this season. Looking at the Chicago Sky, let's look at some stats here. So since we've last seen them, let's look at points per game. Right now, the Sky sits 7th in the WNBA at 81.7 points per game. Field goal percentage, looking at that, they currently sit 10th at 40.9%. So they've not been efficient shooting the basketball, although they've scored it decently. They just are not shooting it at a high clip. And from 3-point land, they've not been a threat much of the season at 30.6% 3-point percentage, and which isn't good because they rank 7th in 3-pointers attempted. So they're taking a good amount of 3-pointers, about 24.5 3-pointers attempted per game, just not making them at a high clip. Free throw percentage, concerning for both these teams. The Sky are above the Fever. The Fever are last in free throw percentage, which is not good at all, 69.1%. Sky, a little bit better, 72%, but still not good. And so those are important points that they're leaving on the court each night. Rebounds, Chicago Sky. This team can absolutely rebound. Angel Reese is a big reason and component to that, and they averaged 37.8 rebounds per game, only behind the Atlanta Dream, who are 38.9, and that's because of Brianna Jones and and Brittany Griner. So they've got some great bigs down there in Atlanta. Look at the assist total per game. They're really good in that category too. The Chicago Sky, 20.5. They've got some really good guard help that I will say the Fever are going to be challenged with. I think Vandersloot is a very good maestro of that offense. But you look at up and down that roster, and you've got some really good basketball players in Courtney Vandersloot and Ariel Atkins. What else do I want to go? Oh, yeah, turnovers, because that was something that caught my eye. So this is the worst team as far as turning the basketball over. The Sky turned it over at 18.2 turnovers per game. That is the worst in the league, and they are just above the Golden State Valkyries in that category. Steals, they pretty decent, 7.5 steals per game. They're 8th in the league, so middle of the pack, just below middle of the pack. And then blocks per game. This one actually shocked me. They're only 9th. So I thought having Angel would be a little bit better as far as blocking shots to the rim and defending the rim pretty well, but that has not necessarily been the case. And then as far as their defense is concerned, I did want to look at some of those stats because I feel that can give you a good understanding of how they are defensively. Defensive rating, they are second to last in the WNBA, 111.3 defensive rating, which is just past or just better than the Sun. The Sun have been awful defensively, but so if the Sky, they will give up points. Chicago will. Opponent points off turnovers. The Sky are 11th in the league at 18.2 opponent points off of turnovers per game, which again, not great. Opponent points second chance. So you're looking at a team that really struggles there too. I mean, their possession battle stats are not good so far. 11.3 points per game on the second chance for their opponents that they give up. So their defense has really struggled mightily. And that's going to be the big key against the Fever, is just to get your offense going, run at them as much as possible. They struggled with them, 35-point win in that opening game. I think the Fever can win this by at least 10. And they should. I mean, I'd expect them to come out even without Caitlin to win this game by 10. But this is just not a good defensive team in the Chicago Sky. So they're gonna really struggle with Indiana, I believe, and they still have some pieces that they need to fill out. They need to be better defensively. I think Angel Reese needs to be better offensively and provide more there. They don't really get the scoring that they necessarily need to be hanging around with some of the top teams in this league. And then with how bad they are defensively, they just don't get points off of turnovers. And so again, it's tough sledding for Chicago. There's a lot of growth. They beat a bad Dallas Wings team twice, but I mean their season's been pretty bad so far. And I mean it opened with the Fever stomping them, and I'd expect the Fever to handle the Sky. I just don't think they're quite up there with the quality of players that they have. But speaking of those players, Ariel Atkins averaging 15.3 points per game. She is shooting 47.6% from the field. 3-point percentage, she's shooting at 44.4% from three and 76% from the free throw line. She has 3.2 assists and 1.5 steals per game. She doesn't turn the ball over that much at 1.8 turnovers per game, so she takes care of the basketball. If you look at the next leading scorer on the team, that is Courtney Vandersloot, who has always been a very good point guard in this league. 6.2 assists per game. She does turn it over a little bit more, but not too much, not too bad at 2.8 turnovers per game. Again, like I said, averages 12 points on 43% shooting from the field. She is shooting 21.7% from three, so not a great 3-point shooter, but very efficient from the line. She shoots 84%. Camila Cardoso, she averages 11.3 points per game, shoots 51.7% from the field. She's a good big. She doesn't shoot threes, but she is very efficient around the rim and in the paint. Rebounds, 6.5 rebounds per game, and this is where she and Angel Reese really do a nice job on the glass, along with Elizabeth Williams and Rebecca Allen. Both rebound very well, so off their bench. But like I said, this is a team that will rebound. They don't defend as well. So, it's tough for this team because I just don't think they produce when you're leading scorer 15.3, and then it's a decent output by the people around her, but they've just not been as great. Cardoso has been better in her last couple of games, but she is listed as day-to-day with a shoulder injury. She sat out practice this week, and so she will be a game time decision, I imagine, for the Chicago Sky in Saturday's contest against the Fever, or I guess could be released Friday before they play, because sometimes they practice, like they'll have a walkthrough on Friday. So stay tuned on Friday to see if she is listed as questionable still. But that's kind of a rundown of the Sky's stats as far as just players that can hurt you. Ariel Atkins, Vandersloot, Cardoso is really good. Angel Reese is great on the glass. But I don't think anybody that you're necessarily, I mean, Ariel Atkins has played really well recently, but beyond that, I think players that the Fever can manage, I think that you can manage against those other players. Cardoso will be an interesting factor because she is a big, and Indiana struggled to defend them at times. But I think the Fever should feel pretty good about going into Chicago and winning this game still. Just don't think this guy can defend Indiana for the time that they need to in this game. But let's see what else. Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty much it that we're going to talk about as far as the preview against the Chicago Sky team. So we're going to talk about some keys to the game, though. Obviously, we just went over the players to watch, but keys to this game. Kelsey Mitchell, she needs to continue that momentum that she had from last games after scoring 24 points. I think getting her involved in the offense early and getting her over 20 points is going to be key in this game. Once again, getting Aaliyah Boston too going. I feel like Aaliyah pretty quiet in the last game. I think she has a bigger game in this one coming up. Slowing down Atkins and Cardoso, again, like I said, those are players to watch, but Ariel Atkins has been on a tear lately. So defending her, I think maybe probably Kelsey Mitchell or Lexi Hull will get that assignment. So we'll see how that goes. Pace, hit shots, right? You're a very efficient shooting team and have been a lot better recently. So hit those shots, make their defense work, swing the basketball. Don't get one-on-one isolation, because I think the more you move this basketball, off-screen actions and on-ball actions, I think you can put this team in a blender, and their defense is just not good. So I think you can really make it difficult on them. Control the glass. They are a good rebounding team. That is one way I think they could stick around in this, if you're allowing them to get offensive boards as well as not, forcing them to get really tough defensive rebounds too. I think trying to get some offensive boards would help too for the Fever, because you could kind of negate the fact that they just don't allow you to get second chance points. And the Fever have been pretty good at getting second chance points in these games. But turning them over, again, lead the league in turnovers. The more pressure you can put on them, they don't like the intense defense and style. And I think that the Fever can provide that at times, where they can be really good defensively. One of the better teams in this league at getting the ball and getting out and running after defensive turnover or offensive turnovers from the other team. But final thoughts here as we wrap up this episode. Again, that game is on Saturday at where did I have that? Sorry, I gotta pull up my tiny little screen. Yeah, the Fever plays Saturday, June 7th at the United Center against the Chicago Sky, 8 p.m. Eastern time on CBS. So a big national game here. And this is part of that Commissioner's Cup run. So you play 5 games in the Commissioner's Cup. It is their version of the end season tournament. If you're listening to this and you don't know anything about Commissioner's Cup, what it is, the best 2 teams out of the conferences play each other. It's the only time that the conferences are used, because the standings are 1 through 13 in this league. They do not play conference style, just because of the size of the league. They only have 13 teams right now, so they do not break it up into conferences except for this Commissioner's Cup. And how it works is the East versus the West. The best 2 teams, one from the East, one from the West, play against each other in the Commissioner Cup's final on July 1st. And that is based off of record. And you play the East Conference plays all the teams in their respective conference. There is, I think you miss 1 team, because there's an odd amount of teams in the West that you play 5 games and you don't play the 6th team. But that being said, the Commissioner's Cup standings as they currently sit in the Eastern Conference, the New York Liberty are in first place. And when I say point differential, it means obviously how many points the team has won by in the games that they've played, positive or negative. And that is used in case the two teams at the top, when you determine who goes to the Commissioner's Cup final, if the two teams at the top, let's say for instance, the Liberty and Minnesota are the two teams at the top and they win, they go 5-0 in Commissioner's Cup. The point differential is used to break the tie of who hosts the Commissioner Cup final. So that's where point differential is used. It is not really used for the conference and interconference, because the tiebreaker in conference will be the head-to-head record, because you will have a head-to-head record against all the teams in your conference. The West is a little different, but they will use point differential in that case to break that tie if needed. Like if Minnesota, Minnesota, for instance, Minnesota and, well, that's going to hurt my head to try to figure that out. So they do play. Okay, so they do play 6 games. Sorry, I misspoke. So the Western Conference does play 6 games in the Commissioner's Cup. Okay, weird. So they do play all their teams. They play 6. The East plays 5. So Eastern Conference Commissioner Cup, is 5 games. You play each of your compadres in your conference, and then the Western Conference has 6. You play the other 6 teams in your conference. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry if that's confusing, but you do play every single team in your conference. I didn't know that the West played 6 and the East played only 5 because they have more teams in the West. But yes, the tiebreaker, the point differential is if the East and the West teams' records are the same. That point differential will determine who hosts. But like I said, New York Liberty in the Eastern Conference 2-0. They're in first with a 56-point differential. That's nuts. Indiana Fever are second in the conference at 1-0 with a 9-point differential, half game back from the Liberty. Connecticut 0-1 in the Commissioner Cup, negative 48-point differential. Washington Mystics 0-2 with a negative 17-point differential. Atlanta, they have not played in the Commissioner's Cup yet, and neither has Chicago. Chicago's first Commissioner Cup game will be on Saturday. And Atlanta, I don't have the schedule pulled up to when their first one will be. Western Conference first place team right now is the Minnesota Lynx. They have a 2-0 record with a 34-point differential, positive. The Vegas Aces have a 1-0 record in this tournament and a 5-point differential. The Phoenix Mercury have a 2-1 record in Commissioner's Cup with a negative 9-point differential. The Seattle Storm 1-1 with a 1-point differential, and they're in fourth. Dallas Wings 0-1 with a negative 6-point differential in fifth. The Sparks have a 0-1 record in the tournament at a negative 5-point differential, and then in seventh place, Golden State with an 0-2 record and a negative 20-point differential. So those bottom teams are pretty much, they're close to being out of it. The Mystics, they lose the next game, they're out. There's no way they can come back from that. So you lose 3 games, you're out quickly. But these games do count towards your regular season record as well. So I do want to go over those standings. So currently the WNBA regular season standings are as follows. The New York Liberty are 8-0. The second place Minnesota Lynx are also 8-0. Atlanta Dream 5-2 in third. In fourth place, the Las Vegas Aces at 4-2. In fifth place, the Phoenix Mercury at 6-3. In sixth, the Seattle Storm at 4-4. In seventh place, at 3-4, your Indiana Fever. And in eighth place, the Washington Mystics at 3-6. That's where the playoff. Those would be the playoff teams if today the playoffs started. And in ninth place, the Chicago Sky at 2-4. 10th place, the Golden State Valkyries, who started very well, have gone on a 4-game losing streak and are 2-5. The Los Angeles Sparks are 2-6 and have lost 3 straight. Connecticut Sun picked up their first win against the Fever and are 1-6 now in the regular season. And in last place, the Dallas Wings, who drop 2 games to this Chicago Sky team that Indiana will play on Saturday. So right now, looking really good if you're the Fever because you're starting to play better. And I'd say the teams 10 through 13 are really taking a nosedive. So you're fighting for those top 8 spots. And with the Sky at 2 and 4, at least they're still within range. But the longer this starts to get, I mean, Connecticut and Dallas, those are 2 very bad teams. The Sparks are not playing well. The Valkyries have really nosedived. So it's going to be very tough for these teams as the season goes on. Obviously, there's only 44 games in this season. You get to 15 games and you're 7 or 8 games, 9 games below 500. That's going to be tough sledding to try to get back into this because the talent at the top of this league is very good, very, very good. So it'll be a great postseason just because there are some really exciting teams in the league this year from 1 through 8. I mean, some very solid basketball teams in this mix. So playoffs will be very competitive, which will be a lot of fun. Looking ahead, Indiana Fever again, Saturday, June 7th at the Chicago Sky at 8 p.m. Eastern time on CBS. Tuesday, June 10th at Atlanta Dream, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN3 at the Gateway Center. Saturday, June 14th versus the New York Liberty. That will be the last game. That'll be a very important game in the Commissioner Cup. That'll be the 4th game in the Commissioner's Cup and probably could be a determining game in who might be able to advance to the Commissioner's Cup if the Fever are able to take care of business against Atlanta, Chicago, and Connecticut, because Connecticut's their last game in the Commissioner's Cup. That'll be Tuesday, June 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern time on NBA TV at Gamebridge. So that's just looking ahead at the last games remaining in this Commissioner Cup, the next 4. Very winnable games against Chicago and Connecticut. A really tough game at Atlanta, but the Fever won the last time there. I'd expect Atlanta to give them a good fight. That'll be an extremely tough test. And ultimately, it could come down to that Saturday, June 14th game against the Liberty, where that could be that could give the Fever a shot at the Commissioner Cup final, which is awesome. And if you don't know, whenever they beat teams, they donate money. Like when the Fever beat teams in the Commissioner Cup, I believe the league donates to the charity of the winning team's choice. So that's cool that they do that. I really enjoy that. And the purse for this tournament will be $500,000 prize pool on the line. I think that's like total, and then they divvy it up amongst the players, which nice added bonus. Gives you a lot of incentive to win the Commissioner's Cup. Get some players paid. These women need to be paid more. Definitely do. It's ridiculous that they don't pay them as much as the men. So let's get them there. Give them the money. Let's do it. I think that's going to be it for today's episode. The Fever will look to continue their winning ways against the Chicago Sky, move to 2-0 in the Commissioner's Cup. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on socials for all the latest updates, analysis, and post-game reactions. We are at the Pacers Fever Show on socials, and you can email us at thepacersfevershow@gmail.com with comments, questions, or whatever you want to chat about. I'm looking for a co-host for the Pacers side of the podcast, the Fever side of the podcast, or both. Looking for some guests. If you want to jump on as a guest, I'm more than welcome to give it a shot and jump on, right, for an episode here and there. And you can find us over on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for listening. This is the Pacers Fever Show. We do cover Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever. Big, big, big weekend coming up for both teams as the Indiana Fever will travel to Chicago, not Atlanta Dream yet, but the Indiana Fever will travel on Saturday to Chicago to look to advance to 2-0 in the Commissioner's Cup and get back to a 500 record. So massive game for the Fever. And then the Indiana Pacers will be taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals for Game 2 of that series. So big weekend for Indiana sports. Looking forward to following the Pacers in their Game 1 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'll be recapping that game when that happens on Thursday night. But looking forward to covering everything else going forward for the Pacers and the Fever. We will talk with you all next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And let's go Fever.